What's up, guys? Time for another fun top 10. This week we're going to talk about my top 10 favorite most badass women in horror. Let's do this. What's up, guys? Welcome to another fun top 10. I've really been having a blast doing these. I'll put a card here for my rankings playlist. You'll see a lot of these different thinking outside the box rankings that I've been doing. And a lot of these ideas I actually get with my wife. We'll go to lunch together on the weekend and we'll just hash out ideas for interesting top 10s that are kind of outside of the norm. And so this week we were having our lunch, and then she was like, why don't you do like top 10 badass women in horror? But they don't have to be like Final Girls. They could be the bad guy, but they're just badass women. And I thought that was a great freaking idea. So we came up with a list. I got a list of 15 actually for you. So I'm gonna give you 5 honorable mentions real quick, and then we'll get into the meat and potatoes. Also, guys, before we get hot and heavy with the countdown, my wife's book, Roller Skate Skinny, we're running a special promotion. You can get the digital version of this book starting this Tuesday, for 99 cents. Tuesday through Sunday. Sunday, the promotion ends. But we figured it'd be a cool promotion to do since I'm talking about badass women in horror, and the main character of this book, Delilah, I think is a psychotic but badass character, very brave. So definitely check out the book if you haven't read it yet, and I tell you, for 99 cents, I think it's a steal. I really do. Or if you want the softback version, it's available for $7.99. Been getting so much great feedback on this book, so definitely check it out. And my first honorable mention is one that wasn't on the previous list because I just recorded this video, found out the whole thing was blurry, and in my unbox, I mentioned this person, Kaya Scarlaro. Her name is really hard to say, but I had to put her on this list, so it's kind of a good thing that I'm re-recording this countdown. It's clear now too, right? And I can add her to the list because I think she is definitely deserving. She was in this movie called Tiger House, which I reviewed a while back, where she's just stuck in this horrible situation where these robbers come to her house and she kicks ass. And then recently she was in Crawl this year, which is one of my favorite movies of the year. Fantastic creature feature. And she's stuck in this storm, like this hurricane, with her father. Her father is useless because he's hurt. He's down for the count. So she has to take it upon herself to save the day. And she doesn't walk out unscathed. I mean, she's even bitten by the alligator in the movie. So real badass. Had to put her on this list. Next one I'm going to mention, I'm going to give it to a classic. The original Black Christmas, Olivia Hussey, who played Jess in the movie. I think Jess is a very interesting character. An unconventional character because this is a person that was thinking about having an abortion. You know, she had the boyfriend in the movie. And the thing that puts her on this list for me is that she is a strong, intelligent woman. And at the end of the movie, she goes back into the house to try to save her friend. And then Billy comes chasing after her. And that is a really effective scene, actually. But I really loved her in this movie. I thought she was kick-ass, but not in the normal way that we usually see, especially these days. You know, I don't think strong women have to be like completely physical. You know, she was strong of mind. Next honorable mention, Ashley Lawrence. I just ran into Ashley Lawrence at Spooky Empire. She was an absolute sweetheart. And I was telling her that Kirsty is actually one of my favorite Final Girls in the first Hellraiser and the second, because this was a very young character. She was like a teenager, and she's facing arguably the most dangerous horror icon ever in Pinhead. Pinhead is probably the one that scares me the most. Like, if I had to physically go against any of the horror icons, Pinhead is the one I definitely wouldn't want to go against, you know, because he can just freaking shoot these chains at you and rip your skin off and all that. But Kirsty, she was afraid, but she still faced him head on, and she said, "Here I am, let me have it." You know, and she had to use her wits about her too. Next honorable mention is Samara Weaving. Samara Weaving has really earned her place as a badass in her performances. First in The Babysitter, which was a really fun-ass movie, and she's definitely like the most memorable and best part of that movie. It's on Netflix, so definitely check that out. And then recently in Ready or Not this year, that is one of the best movies of the year. And it's one of those movies I went into thinking she was just going to be your like typical damsel in distress, but there's a lot of really fun moments with her in this, and I like how she has to figure out how to be a badass throughout the movie, you know? And there's that one scene where she's trying to get away, and she comes up on this car who just leaves, and then she just utters some of the funniest dialogue I've ever heard. So a lot of refreshing stuff like that, but she is awesome. And then last honorable mention I'm going to give you is Ellie Cornell from Halloween 4, and this is just a personal favorite. You're probably not going to see her on a lot of badass women lists, but man, her work in Halloween 4 I think is so awesome because she's not just going up against Myers, but she's putting her life on the line for Jamie Lloyd, her foster sister. And in that last act, Jamie Lloyd would have been toast if not for Rachel. You know, that scene on the roof where you got Myers coming after them. And she's got to figure out in a moment's notice how to get her tied up, get her down the roof. You know, and she never gives up in the truck. She just runs Myers over. I think she was awesome in Halloween 4. Okay, here we go. Top 10. Number 10, Sissy Spacek for Carrie. And really, it's like the only movie I can think of where Sissy Spacek was really a badass. But, you know, throughout this whole movie, she is bullied. They pushed her and pushed her and pushed her, and eventually, you know, she's got all these powers. And so she just freaking lets it all loose in the end. You know, once that bucket of blood falls on her, it's cleaning house time, and she freaking just obliterates everybody at that dance. And it's one of the most striking scenes in horror history. Number 9, this is a more recent movie, a few years ago, in You're Next, Shawnee Vincent. As a matter of fact, somebody actually mentioned her on Twitter too recently, you know, that she should definitely be on the list, and she is. Shawnee Vincent's probably one of my favorite final girls of the last like 5 years. And this is just balls out, having a character that doesn't have any balls, but but she is like the female version of Rambo. You know, as soon as that arrow comes through that window, she just goes into survival mode. She drops below the table. She says, "You go over here. You go over here." She eventually becomes a threat to the killers. They eventually become afraid of her because of how badass she is. From a physical standpoint, she could probably top this list. That's how awesome Erin is in You're Next. Number 8, an old favorite, a classic, Amy Steele. Amy Steele's always in like top 5 greatest final girl lists for good reason too. And she was in April Fool's Day, but most notably, her work in Friday the 13th Part 2. I think she really shines in that movie, especially in that last act when she has to use her mind to figure out how to beat Jason, you know. So she puts on the sweater and she becomes Jason's mother and she tricks him. She's always in control of the situation, and it's a really scary situation to be in. This freaking hillbilly killer running after you. But she pretty much encompasses everything you want in a good final girl. Because she's not running the whole time, you know, she runs some of the time, but then sometimes she'll turn around, she'll kick him in the balls, you know, she'll fight with him. So you get a little bit of everything with her. Number 7, Heather Langenkamp. Do I need to even give you any reasons? She is one of the most awesome final girls I've ever seen on film. In Nightmare on Elm Street, if you compare her to the work that Rooney Mara did in the remake, it's like night and day. You know, this is a character with just so much variety, so much spunk. Even though all this horrible stuff's going on around her, Freddy is extremely dangerous because he can get you in your sleep, so you're just so vulnerable. But she comes up with these booby traps at the end of the movie. She figures out how to pull him out of the dream world, and then she kicks his ass. And you're just rooting for her all the way. And it's not just in the first movie. She's also awesome in Dream Warriors. And if you want to kill off an iconic character, that's how you do it, the way they did it in Dream Warriors. I think they handled it very well. Number 6, a more recent one, Jane Levy. Definitely belongs on this list because she was so awesome in the Evil Dead remake. If you can make the audience forget about Ash Williams and just completely be focused on this character, because throughout that whole movie, I wasn't even thinking about Ash because she's so commanding. And I love the story too, how she's just this drug addict, so nobody believes her, she can't get out. So she has to pretty much take matters into her own hands. And she ends up putting the chainsaw at the end, and it's one of the most bloody scenes I've ever seen. But she's captivating. She's one of those actresses that has that like it factor and you can't take your eyes off of her. You know, she's just so badass. Her work in Don't Breathe, another great example. You know, she kicks ass in that movie at the end. And she's a great actress. She really is a great actress. Number 5, a B-movie horror scream queen, Linnea Quigley. No top 10 badass women in horror list would be complete without Linnea. She's done so many movies in the 80s. She's really horror royalty. And she just has this power to completely take over a scene. There's just something about Linnea that sets her apart from every other actress. You know, and she's played a lot of different characters, but she's always able to bring something interesting to the table. Trash is one of my favorite characters ever in Return of the Living Dead. You know, she's just so full of spunk, and she's just fearless. You know, the Tombstone dance, that is a very memorable scene. But then you look at her work in like Night of the Demons, you know, very different type of character, but then she steals the scene with the lipstick, you know? She always makes her mark in every movie that she does. The antler kill in Silent Night, Deadly Night. Yeah, Linnea Quigley, horror royalty. Number 4, Neve Campbell. Just for her work as Sidney Prescott. You know, this is a character that's been in every Scream movie, and she's just so commanding. You know, she's everything you would want in a final girl. She stands up against Ghostface. She throws it right back at him, you know, because Ghostface, he mentally tortures you over the phone. And so she's one of those characters that doesn't take it, and you know, she just drives him crazy. No matter who's behind the Ghostface mask. You know, there's always this war between Ghostface and Sidney Prescott. She has one of my all-time favorite lines in a horror movie in Scream 4 at the end, because that one kind of dealt with remakes. She says, one thing you got to remember, don't fuck with the original. And I love that line. Number 3, Shauna McDonald from The Descent. I really loved her strength in that movie, her arc, because she starts off just a really damaged person. Her husband died, and then she finds out that her husband was having an affair on her with one of her best friends. And so then they do this cave excursion together. And really, the actress that played Juno can kind of go on this list with her, because they're both really badass, but you know, they're at odds with each other. Juno feels horrible about what she did, and Sarah has to overcome, you know, and there's this like rebirth scene in the vat of blood, and she just comes out of the blood. And from that moment on, she just completely takes over and becomes a different person. And she loses her mind, really. She kills anybody that gets in her way. Now, you're not gonna be surprised by number 2 and number 1. Number 2, the Scream Queen herself, Miss Jamie Lee Curtis. I don't really even have to give you a reason. Jamie Lee Curtis really made her mark in the 80s, but she was very smart about her career. You know, she did a few horror movies along the way, and all her work in like Terror Train, The Fog, especially Halloween, just great stuff. And then she comes back 40 years later, does Halloween 2018, and just completely kicks ass, going up against Myers in the end. Jamie Lee Curtis is just a great actress. I just recently saw Knives Out, just to timestamp this, and her work in that, like, she steals every scene. It's crazy that 40 years later, she's still got it. You know, she's still Jamie Lee Curtis. There will always only be one Jamie Lee Curtis. I give her crap for being in Halloween these days, because I'm ready to move on from the character. But you know what? Halloween would not be where it is if not for her. I cannot take that away from her. And then of course, no surprise here, number 1, Miss Sigourney Weaver. She is so awesome in Alien, and you know, just her arc in all the Alien movies. Ripley is one of the most interesting characters ever put to film, because Sigourney played her in an unconventional way, you know, because she does have a vulnerable side. She does have a sensitive side, but she is a hard-edged person too, and she becomes even more hard-edged throughout the series. You know, that iconic image in Aliens at the end when she's got the gun, she's got Newt on her arm. She is the protector, and you know, she goes up against one of the deadliest villains ever, the Xenomorph. And she understands the Xenomorph. So Ripley is just unlike any other character ever created. And one little thing I'll say too is, some of you might be saying, where is Linda Hamilton? I didn't put Linda Hamilton on this list for Sarah Connor, because I think Terminator leans way farther in the sci-fi realm, at least the movies after the first. So in Terminator 2, that's when she's like her most badass, but that's a full-on sci-fi movie. It's not really a horror movie at all. So that's why I didn't put her. Of course, she is a badass. If I did just badass women and not badass women of horror, then of course she would be on the list. And if there's some other badass women of horror that are not on this list that you're thinking of, stay tuned for part 2, because there's a very, very good chance that they're gonna be on that list, like say Danielle Harris. So did I forget any? Let me know in the comments, guys. Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day, and on Fridays. We do free for all Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and Drumdum out.